Call the meeting to order. Alicia, can you do roll?
Yep. Kathy Gondry.
I'm here.
John Gunkel. Okay.
Here we go.
Sean Hawkins.
Here.
George Peterson.
Here.
Cherie Ingram. Cherie Ingram. Tag O'Gara. Bob Hartwell.
Here.
Taylor Ansley.
Here.
Joe Cassidy.
Here.
John France. Okay, we have 3 absent, but we do have quorum. I'll go ahead and read the governor's recent order. Due to the governor's recent order, all members of the Recreation Parks Commission are participating virtually. Meetings are, excuse me, sorry, couldn't see for virtual meetings, commission members will be muted until asked to be heard. At that time, they will be unmuted and recognized. When there is a vote, it will be necessary to take a roll call vote. A commission member will then be recognized, state their name, and then their vote. Today's meeting is a public meeting. Per the notice, citizens can listen to the meeting if they contact the city manager's office to make necessary arrangements. The meeting will also be live streamed on the city's YouTube channel. And a recording of this meeting can be provided by next Tuesday. Okay, Kathy, you're up.
Okay, so our agenda today, we have the minutes to approve. There's going to be a gift deed that William will talk about. The bulk of the meeting today is going to be, I believe, John Lawson will be presenting the updated commission rules and responsibilities document. And then we're going to get an update on Long Creek. There are several departmental updates that William and Leah and company would like to make. Then the last little bit of the meeting, I think we'll just make sure that we know what we're going to cover during the next meeting. So if we look at the minutes from June, I'm not sure whether you can pull those up, Alicia. So we did we renamed a footbridge. We had a presentation about parks and pediatric fit together. We talked a bit about the curb appeal survey. I believe next time we're going to have Renata come and talk to us about maintenance and hopefully be able to incorporate how the curb appeal study played into that. We did not get the roles and responsibilities presented. Again, John is supposed to be here today to talk about that. Under department updates, there's several department updates. And I do notice that there's an action item for the commission. So during the May meeting, we were interested in adopting a park. It says Winston-Salem Beautiful is going to provide trash bags and supplies, and a location or date needs to be determined. Is that something that we can add to today's agenda to explore that a bit more?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, we had a playground update, we had the Carl Russell update, the Anderson Gym update, and again, I believe, have Robert Presswood today to talk about the Long Creek update. So that was the highlights of the June meeting. May I have a motion for us to approve?
Motion to approve.
John Gunkel, motion to approve. May I have a second?
Second.
Joe Cassidy seconded. Anybody not in favor of approving? Okay, so Felicia, I think we have the June minutes approved.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to our agenda. And I think we want to talk about the gift deed.
Yes. Good afternoon,
Chair, members of the commission. We were approached by Mary Wiggins, who owns a lot of land, which is a little over an acre, 1.1 acres to be exact. The tax pin is located on the screen, and it will be used to kind of connect our future greenway to South Creek Greenway to Wake Forest University, as approved as part of their bike ped plan. Sometimes getting access to property for future greenways can be difficult. We were fortunate in this particular case for Ms. Wiggins to reach out to Kirk Bierlin, the real estate administrator for the city, and ask would we be willing to accept this property as a gift deed. I think that it makes sense for future greenway development to already have this property identified as a location where we can where this greenway is planned, and would like to present it to the commission for any questions and ultimately for approval.
So William, when would this land actually be acquired?
It would go to city council as part of their September meeting. And it was one of the reasons why, Kathy, it got added to the agenda almost at the last minute. Kirk was able to get confirmed that she was willing to provide it as a gift deed to the city and go ahead and complete the council request item as well as a resolution. And typically, as we have in the past, we bring any property additions to our parkland inventory to the commission for approval before it goes to city council.
Okay. So with this land acquisition, is any other land still need to be acquired in order to make the connection that you're talking about?
Yes, there are still other parcels that need to be purchased, or easements that need to be purchased in order to complete the greenway. But during those times where we already have that property in our inventory, just makes that entire process much easier.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have questions? No? Okay, can I have a motion to approve this?
Move to approve it. Taylor.
Second that.
Sean seconded. Okay. Any objections? Okay, everybody's in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I think you've got approval, Felicia and William.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, John, I'm sorry, I didn't notice. Is John Lawson on the phone?
Yes, he is.
Okay, terrific. So we don't have a copy of the revised ordinance, William?
The ordinance isn't at this point revised. What John, and that's why it didn't get emailed out, because I didn't want to create any confusion. There isn't a draft change. There's been some draft recommendation changes to the ordinance that are recommendations. John will go through those. However, didn't want to jump ahead of ourselves and create an ordinance or create any additional changes to the ordinance without getting this in front of the commission, having the Recreation Parks Commission have an opportunity to ask John questions and kind of go through some of that dialogue. I think there were a lot of questions that need to be answered as a result of, after some feedback from this particular meeting. We'll sit down with John and get that work to continue to get the changes to the ordinance amended and get that back in front of you all for approval before we take it to city council for final approval.
Okay, so John's going to talk through the changes. We're going to ask questions, and then he'll take that feedback and incorporate it.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Kathy,
Yes,
can I ask a question?
sure.
This process is okay up to one point. When whatever questions we have, answers are offered or whatever, I would still expect to see a draft ordinance prior to any meeting in which there's action contemplated. I can't imagine taking this thing, having it presented to us at a meeting for approval. I don't think that's going to work.
It wouldn't be our intention to draft an ordinance and then just bring it to you at at the whatever future commission meeting and ask you to approve it, we'll make sure that we get that information out to you beforehand. So if there are any additional questions that you have, we can try to get those addressed before that time. And if not, if we have to take it and have some further discussion at a meeting before it goes to, before we get final approval, that won't be a problem as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, without further ado, Mr. Lawson.
Thank you. So this process started earlier this year. You know, the chair and staff members and I met maybe in February or March or something like that to kind of talk through what the commission's responsibilities are as it relates to sort of managing the Recreation and Parks Department and Recreation and Parks properties, and seeing if there's a way to either to clean up what is in the city code about you know, about the commission's obligations and powers and duties and whatnot, and seeing if there's a way to either pare it down or clarify it or add or remove or do whatever we need to make it a little bit more clear. Because as of right now, you know, it's written sort of very broadly as to in terms of what the commission's authority is and what it is charged with doing. I mean, for example, it says that the commission has the authority and is charged with the responsibility for the operation, control, and management of the parks. So what does that mean? I mean, you know, I don't know. It's a sentence. And that was one of the things that, you know, William and I had talked about, and that, you know, wanted to get you guys' feedback on is, you know, sort of what kind of powers and duties does, you know, do you feel like the Recreation and Parks Commission should do? Like, what should be, you know, other than, you know, sort of, you know, any kind of park acquisition or disposition, you know, the real property issues, like how involved does the commission want to be on a day-to-day basis? What kind of oversight, what kind of, you know, duties and powers does the commission actually want to exercise control of? And in looking at that and in talking with William and with Assistant City Manager Johnny Taylor, you know, I went through and looked at the other city commissions, boards and commissions, and there's a lot. And some of them have very bare bones, very general powers and duties that are spelled out in the city code. Some of them have some powers and duties that are quite elaborate and quite detailed. And so I think if we're looking at tweaking or amending the city code as it relates to this commission's powers and duties, we kind of need to figure out what those powers and duties need to be. You know, it's not my intent to, you know, to draft something or sort of presume, you know, what it needs to say, because, you know, it has to be a collaborative effort between you guys as commission members and staff, and also between staff and the manager's office, and then the manager's office and council, because we don't want to go through all this trouble to propose changes to the, you know, to the powers and duties of this commission if it's going to get in front of council, and council should be like, no, we're not going to do that. So we've got to work through, you know, work both sort of up and down the food chain on this to make sure that everybody's in agreement as to what it needs to do, and make sure that, you know, the manager's office has signed off on it and everything before we actually take an action item, you know, to you guys, and then later to council, because the council is the one that has to, you know, formally vote to amend the city code. And just, you know, I keep referencing the city code. You know, the city established this Recreation and Parks Commission. It establishes all the commissions, and the established commissions are governed by the city code, which is basically the city's rules, the city's laws. You know, so for example, you know, this commission, you know, there's sections in the city code that talk about, you know, how the commission is comprised, how many members there are, how long their term is, how are vacancies filled, what constitutes a quorum, you know, and then there's, you know, there's talk about the organizational structure, what the powers and duties are, you know, how, you know, who has the authority to promote a recreation director. Does the commission have to make reports to the city council? that kind of thing. Obviously, the biggest one I think that William and I and the chair have discussed is what are the powers and duties of the commission, and how much sort of authority or oversight the commission wants to have with regards to the day-to-day activities of the Recreation and Parks Department. So the document that William had, or that's on the screen now, is sort of what I copied and pasted from some of the other commissions. It can kind of serve as a guide or even a template. But I really just wanted to kind of see how, because all these commissions were sort of established over time. They weren't all created at one time. Everybody's code is not the same. So that the intent is not to somehow harmonize all however many 20 commissions or whatever there are, so that everybody's is sort of formatted the same, or that every commission has sort of the same purpose and powers and duties. But really, it's this sort of what we're doing today is I want to get some feedback from the commission as to sort of what you guys kind of envision your role as being as sort of these somewhat temporary, oversight folks, and over the course of your terms on this commission. Do you want to sort of reshape what the commission's focus is? Do you want to more narrowly tailor it? Do you want to broaden it? All of that is is up for discussion. I know that William and I think Johnny Taylor, assistant city manager, are fine with some of these changes. Like for example, taking out that the commission has the power to make the bylaws, rules, and regulations for the proper conduct of the recreation department. That makes it seem like you guys have, basically authority to do anything you want with regards to the department. And I don't think that's the intent. And so, rephrasing it or paring it down, saying, that you can set, park hours or set, rates to charge to rent, a shelter or something like that. I think that, that's the kind of stuff that you could have some oversight on, but, managing employees or, like rules and regulations for park behavior and all that. If you guys want to make that stuff, that's fine. If you want to leave it to staff, then that's fine as well. It's the sort of tasking the commission with the operation, control, and management of the park properties is extremely broad. It's extremely empowering, and it's. I guess you could almost view it as a burden on the commission to have to do that, and trying to figure out a way to sort of pare that down. I'm all for if you guys are, and we can get the support and the buy-in from obviously from William, but also from the manager's office, because the manager's office isn't going to recommend making these kind of changes if they don't feel that there is going to be buy-in from council to do that. So I guess, do you guys have any questions for me at this point in the presentation?
I guess I have one question for you, John. Do we have any context for the original intent behind the commission from City Council and whether that has changed at all? It seems like that's sort of an important piece of the puzzle. What the council was expecting to kind of benefit from this commission originally, or what that expectation is today.
I don't. The commission was it established quite a long time ago. I could see if the clerk's office could pull some of these historical documents, because it looks like this commission has been in effect since maybe at least the 70s. So if there is some sort of, if we can take maybe what was discussed back then and use that, to the extent that there was something, it could have just been, we need to have a commission to manage the park properties. It could be as simple as that, or as vague as that, or it could be more detailed. I haven't been able to find anything, but what's online, it does not go back that far.
John,
So,
and Taylor, when the commission was originally established, it was established during a time when the city county, when the school system and the city were one. And it was also during a time when the Recreation and Parks Department did more citywide events because our park system wasn't as vast as it is now. Since that separation with the school system and the city, nothing in the ordinance changed. And that's why it was one of the things in the current ordinance says like the Recreation Parks Commission has the authority to close streets for skate so that people can come out and roller skate. We don't do any of that anymore. And so it was written during a time when the reality and the way that we're working was very, very different. The way that the commission has been functioning over the past 20, 25 years or so has been in that more advisory role, especially after the schools with the split with the school system.
So William, when we met with Tasha back in March, at that point, I mean, Taylor's thought here is exactly where we were with it, which was what does the city council want and expect? And she was going to go back to city council and ask those questions. I think, John, you were part of that conversation as well. So it sounds to me like instead of us asking them with a blank piece of paper, what do they want, that, John, you're suggesting that we offer up the value add that we think we can provide to the city, and then we draft that, and then we go to city council. That's what it sounds like, that we're going to do bottom up instead of top down.
Well, I think in terms of knowing, I think my concern with doing it the other way, with doing top down is, going, and I don't know what extent Tasha had at the manager and council level discussions with them about going forward with amending this code. I mean, she left Winston to go to High Point in, I think, maybe early July. And I don't know what she did between, those initial meetings in March and when she left. I had emailed her and never got a response. I don't want to presume that nothing happened, but I just don't know. I don't know if William is aware of stuff that has been talked about at that high level or not. Part of me thinks a good way forward, though, is to propose some changes or clarifications to what's in there to make the way it is written to be more applicable in the 21st century as opposed to, when it was originally crafted back in the, 60s or 70s or whatever, whenever the city and the school system kind of, because, all the school system properties used to be owned by the city, and the city sold them or deeded them to the school system back in, I think, like the late 60s, maybe. And so I don't know if what is in the code now is that old. I mean, I think certainly, maybe a refresh is warranted.
So what I think I've heard the commission say that we think we're interested in is, priorities and like a budget review. How much money is there? Where's it being, what the project priority list is, just kind of having that presented. It seems like park maintenance is always a biggie, what's happening with park maintenance. We've recently talked about, community liaison. So I know George Peterson, I forget who else was on your group with you, so I apologize for that. But how do we make sure that we're tapped into what the community really wants and needs? And then Bob has been very interested in us reviewing contracts. And, I'm not thinking that is part of what we're doing, but that's where we're kind of looking for guidance, because we don't want to keep asking for things if it's really out of our scope. And so I'll be quiet. I'm not sure, the rest of you commission members, please chime in. Maybe we can just do a round robin. What do you think?
I'll go ahead and start. You know, from my perspective, I mean, I kind of view myself as kind of representing some of the citizens of Winston-Salem, and part of what we're doing on this commission is providing input on the overall goals and objectives of the park system. So I would think that would be like a high level. Now, there's always some other things that come into play that would probably, you know, suggest that we would have input on, but in general, that would be my viewpoint.
Sean, how about you? What do you think? Sean, are you on mute? All right, we'll come back to Sean. Joe, how about you? You have any additional thoughts?
I would say my thoughts were similar to John's, that it's more of a high level. It's not getting into the day-to-day operations. That's left to the Recreation and Parks Department staff to be able to manage. You know, some of the things I jotted down while John was talking, you mentioned, it's been aligns with some other, you know, boards that I've been on. It's and I will call these reviews, not approvals, understanding the city's process, but it's a review of budgets before they're submitted, a review of the draft of strategic plans and priorities. If there's a turnover in the director, that there are representatives from the commission that are serving, that are engaged in the search process. And that when the director's performance appraisal is being worked on, that the chair has asked for input from the board.
Okay, thank you.
I have the copy of the current code if you guys want to take a look at that on the screen.
Can we get, I'd like to continue going through each commission member. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Taylor, how about you? Do you have other thoughts about?
I totally echo what's been said. I do think that providing kind of eyes and ears around our community for folks in the citizenry to express, you know, concerns or praise of parks activities and park conditions and things like that. I think the curb appeal survey was a good step in that direction of just putting us to work, you know, in a way that is hopefully helpful to the park staff and supporting their work. So yeah, that would be my comment, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely, we want to be helping. Who done this? George.
Kathy, this does give us somewhat of an outline of what our roles and some responsibilities are, and it kind of we didn't have this you know, at all. So now we kind of see what the direction of what we can do and how we need to do it, and looking at what areas that we can go in as far as what our roles are.
Thank you, Sean. I agree with you. George?
I think my opinion is similar to what most people have said, that I appreciate the idea of being kind of oversight and representing a number of people in the city who, you know, aren't on the commission or aren't at these meetings, even though, you know, they can see them. And then being able to kind of decide how much sway to have over some of those decisions. I mean, I think to the point that was originally made, I don't necessarily want to be responsible for, you know, things like closing down streets or managing employees or anything like that. That's not what I'm interested in doing. I like the idea of the citizens of the city having that ability, but I mean, that's sort of in the same way, you know, why we elect people that then go and hire people and that sort of thing. So I like the idea of having oversight. I think I'd like to limit the scope of what we have access to, but I'd want to kind of look at what's written and see how much of it I want to change, I guess.
Good, good. Bob?
I would like to suggest, I've got a couple of things here, but I'd like to suggest that commission members be allowed to offer language for the ordinance, in consideration for the ordinance, which would be reviewed by the commission as soon as reasonably possible. Because one of the problems you have here is that we all have our ideas, and I haven't heard anything that I don't agree with so far, but we all have our ideas, but that's got to be put down on a paper somehow. We have an understanding what the authority is. So I'm suggesting that those who wish to offer up language, I definitely want to. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, you're right, Kathy, the contract administration issue is a big deal. And I've been on this tear for a long time about how we could have gotten tens of millions of dollars worth of deferred maintenance. And how do we stop that from continuing? And I have a pretty strong feeling how we got here, but I want to talk about that. But I think that we should have something serious to say about being able to say as a commission, look, where are we on specifics on fixing this problem that the department can do? And what are those things the department can't handle in terms of fixing this problem? Because it is a major problem. It is very visible in my view. And without even getting to the routine maintenance part, which is a different matter, and there's a problem there too. So I like to suggest, I would like to propose some language, not now, but for another meeting, and which is going to include at least an attempt at what's reasonable for us to expect to fix those things that don't seem to be going quite well. And we can come to an understanding about that with the department. That's great. If we don't, we go to city council. I think there's got to be some kind of a process to get this. The maintenance is the biggest one because that's where the most money is. And I don't think we can walk away from an obligation to deal what's within this report that I keep touting. It's on the floor here. I won't pick it up on deferred maintenance, but it's a serious matter. Right. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. Did I miss any other commission members? Okay, so John, did that give you enough to get started on to put a draft together for us?
Hold on one second, John, before you answer that. Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
How about individually, the members of the commission kind of jot down what their ideas are? Let's get that in one list. Let's sit down, let's get that to John. Let's look over that and begin to review that internally. Come back next month, be able to provide an update saying like this will work and this is how it can be written, using pretty standard language from some other boards and commissions that serve in similar roles, and kind of go through those items. And we can even kind of send some of that back to you prior the next commission meeting. But it could be something that goes like an email string that we get from you all that kind of has a comprehensive list of what those things are. Because I think what John mentioned earlier, I think he was dead on in saying that I think that what will work the best is kind of going from the ground up, getting some idea from you all exactly what those things are, being able to kind of catalog those and be able to go through those one by one, and then provide an update back to you. And then once we all get on the same page with everything, take it to city council for approval.
That sounds fun. If you guys want, I will volunteer I wrote down all the things that you wrote. Joe, you did a great job, I think. Well, everybody. I wrote down what everybody said. If you want, I can put that all on one sheet of paper so that then you guys can all look and add and tweak. And we'd start with more of a consolidated version. Would that be okay with everybody? Anybody not okay with that?
That works, Kath.
Okay, so it's not going to be gorgeous. It's just going to be my notes from what you all said. And Felicia, I'll get that to you probably today so that you can send it out to everybody. Is that okay? And if not, John, Mr. Lawson, no, it's not going to be like legalese, right?
It doesn't need to be.
Okay.
At least not at this point. I'll handle that part. You know, I can lawyer it up if you need me to.
Okay. William, are you good with that?
Yep. I think that's the best way to move forward.
Okay, great. All right. Can we move now to the next item? I know you wanted to spend time on the Long Creek update.
Yeah, 1 second, John. Does anyone else have any additional questions for John at this moment?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Harlow.
Yeah, thank you. One question for John. Are these other boards and commissions and their enabling software, are they located in one place that we can look at those?
So you're kind of breaking up, but it sounded like you asked if the boards, if their duties and powers were in one place. Is that right?
Yes, I
So the
suspect
document
not.
that was just up on the screen was something that I had sent to William and to Assistant City Manager Taylor maybe last week or the week before last. What I did is basically just copied and pasted from the city code. I mean, all of the boards and commissions are in Article 3 of Chapter 2 of the city code. And there's, beyond what is on that document that was up on the screen, there's other stuff that is sort of more specific to those, like in terms of, for example, how their members are elected and when their meetings are held and stuff. I didn't copy and paste that stuff. I only grabbed basically the purpose and duties and administration, that those sort of aspects of those commissions and boards. I can email that, or I can, William has all y'all's email addresses if he wants to forward that on to you guys to see, so that you can kind of see how it's written for other, for some of the other boards and commissions. You can kind of take a look and see what's there. Because some, like I mentioned, some are very broad, some are very narrow. Some of the boards have more power than others as well, just in terms of what they're tasked with. But certainly, that document, I can, William or Felicia or whomever can send that out to all you guys, because they, they'll have your email.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we can get that emailed out to you at the conclusion of this meeting, so you have time to review it. John, thank you so much for being with us today. You don't have to stay on the call. I know that you're a busy man, but I just want to say thank you for being here and helping us work through this.
Yeah, not a problem. Look forward to continuing these conversations.
All right, thanks, John. You have a good rest of your day, man.
All right, thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question about the bylaws. You said this bylaws is going to be basically drawn up by the city codes. Is that what you're referring to?
The item, the very specific list of duties that the commission will be responsible for is what we were discussing, and that will have to be amended as part of the city ordinance. And so what Kathy's going to do is kind of gather everyone's feedback from the commission, prepare a list for us, take that, we'll get it to John, and we'll begin to work through those things until we get a consensus about what the boards, the commission's responsibilities are moving forward.
And I want to know, can we be notified if when our term has ended? Because I really didn't know whether my term had ended or not, and all I had was a card that was sent to me and said it was it would expire at a certain time.
Yeah.
How are we notified when our term ends as we serve on this commission?
Typically, when the city staff kind of makes note of that, and we've done that in the past, where we'll come to the commission and say, if your term is renewable, you'll get a letter or an email asking, would you like to renew your term for an additional term? For those members who aren't eligible for an additional term, recommend that, we'll make note of that, and typically we'll take pictures or present a plaque or certificate to that commission member, letting them know that we appreciate their years of service. That's usually done from city staff, from our end.
Yeah, this is John France. I was just wanting to know, because I didn't know what time my term ended. Really, I wasn't keeping up with it. I know I talked with the mayor. We had lunch when we had, when I was put on this board, when I was put on this commission. We had lunch, and next thing I know, I was on I asked him, could I serve on this committee? And he said yes, but I never received any paperwork stating my term had ended or anything of that nature.
I don't think your term is ended, but what we can do is get a list of, I get Felicia to email each of you a list of which term you're in and your end dates. We can get that emailed out to you individually.
Yeah, I know it's been renewed now, but at the point in time, I didn't know. That's what I was saying. It's been renewed, but, at the point in time, because it had ended and I hadn't been notified at that time. So I was just hanging it. I didn't know exactly where I was in it, in the commission. That's what I was saying.
Mr. France?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. France, there should have been a letter that was sent out to your address from the mayor's office. It was a copy stating that you were reappointed.
Yeah,
and it has the end of your term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I received that. What I was saying, it was sent, after the date of my termination. That's what I'm saying. But see, I didn't get the letter to later on. That's what I'm saying.
So William,
I thought my term had ended, the previous month, but.
So I think, I'm sorry, John, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Okay, so I think, William, you're going to get a list of everybody's expiration date, and we can kind of go through that next time. I want to be sensitive to time because there's still 4 more items on the agenda.
I do as well, but yeah, we can take care of that, Kathy. All right.
Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, is it okay? Can we move on to the Long Creek update?
Yes.
I don't want to cut anybody off, but okay, all right, hit it.
I know that we've had several questions about the progress at Long Creek. I know it's been a hot topic here on the commission. Robert Presswood is the city engineer. He's one of the smartest people in the city. He and his department are tasked with managing any of the construction projects where there's vertical construction. That means picnic shelters, restrooms, building structures, all of that. And so we've asked Robert to kind of come to this meeting so he can provide an update to you on the status of Long Creek, where we've come and what the end goal is once the project is complete. Robert?
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody had a good Labor Day weekend. Just wanted to, as William said, give you a quick update on the Long Creek Park. Just wanted to kind of go through the timeline first, just as a reminder of what we've done so far. In June of 2019, we issued the RFQ to hire a designer for this project. Ultimately, we hired Stimmel & Associates, who was responsible for doing the master plan also on this project. They started their design in October of 19, completed it in June of 2020. So we went out to bid after that. The low bidder when we opened bids was a company called Garanco Construction. And so City Council approved that contract. During that time, we were having some issues within some of our departments here of getting contracts approved because all the meetings were being held virtually. One of the things that happened during that process is the MWBE Citizens Review Committee did not have a quorum at a couple of their meetings, so we never could get the good faith effort approved. So that delayed the contract process quite a bit, which ended up pushing us out. We actually physically started construction in February of 21 on that project. The current completion date on the contract is October 27th of 2020. I'm sure you've been out there and have seen it, and I don't see us completing by then. We are working with all of our contractors. It's not just Long Creek. There is a historic supply chain issue in the construction industry right now. The steel manufacturer originally had set June as his delivery date out at Long Creek. We still don't have the steel out there and are not sure where we're going to get it. Like I said, this is affecting all our projects. We have a fire station over on Bethel Church Road that is waiting on steel framing on it. They've been waiting for a couple months on that. I don't know if you've seen what we've worked on out at Bowman Gray Stadium, but we have a brand new restroom out there that we can't open right now because we don't have the toilet partitions. And it's across the board supply wise. And then even if we have enough supplies, a lot of these supply companies don't have enough drivers to deliver their product. We couldn't get concrete pipe out at Washington Park for quite a while because the concrete pipe company didn't have drivers to deliver it. So we are working with our contractors to try to be flexible on this because this is something out of their control as far as the supply is concerned. But if you were out there last week, they were pouring the concrete slab for the pool house. They finally got the rebar and the steel they needed for that. So they have made progress on that. But that's kind of my quick update. Be happy to take any questions from anybody as far as the project is concerned or any other recreation projects.
Yeah, I have a question for the Russell Community Center. How long is that going to take for that to be completed? I know we got shortages of everything. I mean, everywhere, but how long will it take for that to be completed?
Currently, the estimated completion date for the work at Carl Russell is the end of October. And I'm saying the end of October just because of many of the issues that Robert just mentioned. I don't want to say it would be done by the end of September because there's so many things outside of staff's control that could alter that. But the current estimated completion date for that project based on our discussion with the contractor is end of October.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Not only with respect to Long Creek, I guess this applies everywhere. Are these delays in supplies and deliveries, which we hear about all the time, it's all over the place, are they driving up the cost of these projects or are we protected in some way?
The projects we have under contract, we are protected. It's the projects that we're getting ready to put out to bid that we're very concerned about because the prices have shot through the roof. One of the recreation projects that we're actually getting ready to put out to bid in September is the Bellevue Recreation Center, and we're very concerned of what kind of prices we're going to see. The plan right now is to go ahead and put it out to bid. But if what we see is just completely out of budget, we may have to make a decision to pull it back and hold on 6 or 8 months to see if things stabilize or come down and then rebid it then.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So Robert, I have a question. You said the original target date to complete Long Creek was October of 21. And
yes.
So is there a new target date?
The contractor is currently putting a schedule together. It's really hard for him to put something together since he doesn't know when he's going to get the steel delivered. And that's a key part of his schedule. So until he has that date, it's hard for him to give us a new date.
Okay, thank you.
Robert, thank you for the update. This is for what's referred to as phase 2.
I think, William, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's just phase 1, isn't it?
Phase 1.
Phase 1.
Yeah, it's the pool house and then what we're calling the market shelter, which is a combination large picnic shelter, but can also be used as a farmer's market.
Do we have a timeline for phase 2?
Funding will have to be identified before we go forward on a phase 2. And right now I'm not aware of any funding.
Do we have a plan for requesting funding?
We have, once everything is complete, projects of, this size typically would have to be bond funded either through 2/3 bonds or some other, or GO bonds, or a mixture of both, or either one. Right now, we don't have any plans. We have not requested money for phase 2. Typically, once we complete projects like this, we kind of get a feel for what the neighborhood likes, what they don't like, some of the additional things that they would like to see, and communicate those to the council member and include those as part of our capital request. More recently, the majority of our funding requests have been from our department, have been to fix things that we need to fix and not build anything new.
I have a question following on Joe. Where is the community engagement process with respect to Long Creek and Phase 2?
Right now, we haven't had any discussions with the community about Phase 2 improvements. Typically, the way that process has worked just here in the city in the past is that, they will receive a certain amount of funding. And it's important that I understand why it works that way, because we don't want to make commitments or get the community's hopes up that we're able to do things in particular phases without having the funding to see how far we can go. If we were provided $2 million with the funding, we would reach out to the community and say, hey, listen, this is what we did with Phase 1. This is what we completed. We have $2 million in funding for Phase 2. Kind of have a consultant on board, kind of have some community engagement, reach out and kind of see what the community wants to have done as part of that Phase 2, and then move forward from there. But we typically have not reached out to the community about future phases from projects because it's provided a false sense of hope that something was going to get done sooner than later. And projects this large can take several years to complete.
And if I could just add on to something William said, is projects of this size typically are funded through voter approved bonds. If we were to follow our normal cycle, that would be November of 2022. But that would mean we have to start putting the plan together in the next few months. And with the way things are right now in the world, I don't know if voter approved bonds in 2022 is something council is going to be looking at doing or not.
What would be the problem, though? I'm having a problem with it's a little bit of a cart and a horse. Why don't we find out what people want in the next phase? They know that the money isn't growing on the trees out there, but then find out what they want. There's a lot of interest in fixing up the cart paths for a greenway. That's very popular. There's a disc golf issue, which is not so popular with people I know, but popular or not, why don't we find out what people want, and then we're ready with an understanding it isn't funded right now. I don't understand why we don't continue the public engagement process with that and I don't know, perhaps other parks.
One of the reasons, and I understand where you're coming from, but one of the reasons, one of the ways, and it's worked well for us in the past, is that we typically have a consultant on board that we already have under contract that handles that. Right now, we don't even have the funding to hire a consultant to come in and do that community engagement, that community engagement piece. But once those ideas are presented, I mean, it usually takes, once we gather that public input, it doesn't take long for any of the consultants that we work with to kind of put those ideas down on paper, come up with a couple of different schematics and be able to provide that feedback to the community within 30 to 45 days after we had initial meetings.
Okay.
Is that not handled by the planning committee as well? Whenever we decide we're going to do something?
I'm sorry, can you answer that question again? I'm sorry, you were breaking up for a minute.
Yeah, is that not controlled by the planning committee to handle that type of thing?
If they're voter approved bonds, there are different ways that the different funding sources are approved. Voter approved bonds are typically presented to the public after some pretty lengthy internal discussions with council and the manager, as well as some other various commissions and committees throughout the city. And those recommendations are made through there. If they're 2/3, which is our internal every other year capital funding cycle, those recommendations are made by me and my department to the city manager's office and the budget office for approval.
Yes, most of the time when I have a meeting with the planning committee, they seem like they already know what they want to do and how they're going to do it. especially with this airport situation here. And also, the county is doing parks and recreation for the Blues Creek. I hadn't heard nothing about that until here recently.
Yeah, but those are county projects, and the airport is going to be completely out of our scope. And I'm not sure what governing bodies are involved in those projects, and not sure how the county moves forward with their public input. But I could also, I would go out on a limb to say that there are other municipalities that probably do it better than we do. We've been very, very diligent in our community outreach. We had several community meetings about Long Creek when it was initially even being discussed being a park property. I remember recently reading something in the paper how the county had planning on making some improvements or making some building additions out of Tanglewood that didn't go over very well with the community. We don't typically get that kind of pushback. By the time we have funding in place, we've already had those community outreach meetings. It puts us in a better position to look for certain grants. But I'm not familiar with the airport or how the county has handled their public engagement, but I think that we do a pretty good job of it here and have been. We have a very good track record of that.
Okay, so do we have anything else about Long Creek? We're running out of time. I don't know how you want to handle the rest of the agenda.
William, where do we stand with the SIM Center and with that as far as
the gym floor renovation is, I would say, 90% complete. We did a walkthrough, and there were some punch list items that the contractor is working through. One of them is a very difficult and probably costly fix of something that didn't pass our initial inspection. We're looking to have the contractor finish all of those additional items that we want to have dressed up by the end of October.
And Renata's going to be here next month to provide an update on all the maintenance projects, right?
Yes. I'll have, what we'll do, we'll get a list of our capital projects. So we do keep a record of that and kind of what status each of those are in. We'll kind of get that composed in a manner so that we can distribute it to you all and send it out. And if you have any questions, try to answer as many of those as we can prior to our next meeting. But I'll also have her here to kind of go over and provide additional details to you about anything that you have questions on at our next meeting.
Yes, I had one more question. I know we were asked to go and look at some of the parks and to look at the maintenance. I went to the Kimberly Park, I believe that's what it's called, Happy Hill Garden, and I know the track and field they have there. Are they going to put any places for high jump and shot put? I didn't see that there in that facility. All I seen was track.
There currently none of those items were included as part of the improvements at Happy Hill. There are some limitations in terms of what we can and can't do in the majority of the park space there because of floodplain issues and flooding issues. However, there's also been some discussion with Councilor Scipio about adding some of those elements. Currently, we don't have funding to do so, but it's not an easy fix. I mean, some of the things could restrict flood waters if they're flowing downstream during heavy rain events. So there are certain processes we have to follow. I can't guarantee you that it's going to be there, that those things will be there, but it's been talked about. Currently, we just don't have the funding for it.
All right. Have anybody mentioned?
Oh, sorry.
Has anybody mentioned naming the park?
No.
Okay. I have one referral. I can bring that to you, and I need to get with my counselor first and present it to you all. If that would be okay with the board, with the commission. Yeah, I didn't know if the commission could present that, to this in this meeting, so to speak?
You know, typically those naming requests, the way that all naming requests are handled through the city, it's a request that comes from the council member of that board.
Yeah.
And then
That's what I was thinking.
it's brought to the commission for approval, and then it moves forward to city council for final approval, for final approval.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay, I just wanted to know the process of it.
No problem.
So Joe, I thought you were trying to say something, and do you have something kind of quick?
Thanks, Kathy. William, I appreciate your comments about the not having public engagement and raising expectations. I would say, at least from the neighbors I'm hearing from in that area, I think it's having a reverse effect of that the neighbors around there were annexed by the city. Their property was annexed by the city. It was some shortly after that the city brought that golf course, and some of the public officials at that time end up saying that this was going to be something that the city could give back to the neighbors in that area. So it set an expectation that they were going to get something for having been annexed into the city. And some of them are getting a little more irritated right now with the north, because they're seeing the Northway construction coming and saying, how come this construction of the highway can proceed so quickly, but the park is taking so long? So I understand what some of the challenges are of moving the project forward, but my concern, what I'm hearing is that the lack of communication to the neighbors around it is increasing some levels of frustration.
Yeah, and Joe, I can understand that, and I'll probably ask Robert to chime in on this if anything I'm getting ready to say is incorrect, but I would dare to say that the planning for that beltway started 10, 15, 20 years ago. And you can't compare highway construction with park design and park development.
Longer, William. It was probably more like 20 years ago.
Yeah. And so it's what people see getting done on the ground versus what we've been able to accomplish at Long Creek, not only just being able to make all the repairs that we made at the pool. We invested over close to $500,000 just to get the pool ready for the public to use, because we have to operate as a city. We have to operate by a different set of rules with the county just to have it open for the public. We invested over $400,000 out there, somewhere around $400,000 just to get the bathhouse and the pool ready just to open for the residents. If you look at what we've been able to accomplish in a very short period of time since we acquired Long Creek versus what's going on with that beltway, I think we're probably a little bit more efficient than the state is in terms of getting things done. But I understand where you're coming from, but I would just caution people to not compare highway and road construction to what we do. The state rarely, if ever, will deal with floodplain issues. And some of the other things that we have to deal with on property. We had two wells on that property that we had to file the proper paperwork to abandon. I mean, we've had challenges after challenges out there, and I think that given how much time we've been actively working on it, I think we're making some pretty good progress out there. And once the phase 1 improvements at Long Creek are complete, there's some things that we've committed to do to try to continue to improve that park and make it available for the public to use. And we'll keep moving forward with that, even if we have to use some of our operating dollars to try to work out some of those, take care of some of those low-hanging fruit.
Just one short, if I may, following.
So wait, Bob, before you start, we're past time, and we've had 2 commission members that have had to drop.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how we want to proceed. Do we need to adjourn the meeting and keep asking informal questions, or can we continue?
I mean, first, to be respectful of Robert's time, if there aren't any additional questions for him, I would like to go ahead and let him be able to move on to his next. I know he has another meeting that's he's running over for right now. I want to kind of be respectful of his time. But if Bob has a question, I can answer that informally, or if you want to adjourn the meeting, it's up to you, Chair. I can stay as long as you need.
Okay. So, and any of the department updates need to be shared now? I mean, I feel very badly because we do appreciate the Parks and Rec Department or excuse me, the Rec and Parks Department and all that you do for the community. And we haven't allowed you to present your updates.
What we can do, we can try to get something out to you in writing to provide some updates to you from that end. If that will be helpful. If you have any questions about it, come back and we can discuss that in October. But I do have something I want to have on the agenda at our next meeting is bringing our GIS administrator, Josh Billings, in, allowing him to kind of spend some time and go through some of the cool things we're doing with GIS in the department.
Okay, terrific. All right, so should we adjourn and then people can stay and we can talk informally? Okay.
That's fine.
Can I have an motion for adjourning?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so we're formally adjourned, but please hang on if you have more questions that you'd like to banter about with William.